Recording started.
Thank you.
Thank you. 2 minutes and counting.
Let's do it. Wow. The QR code looks nice.
Very, very cool, huh?
Yeah.
Praise God. Morning, everyone. 1 minute and counting.
I thought just now I got 10 minutes.
It's 1 minute now. We're starting at 10 o'clock, right?
Okay, I'll cue you when I transit. When 10 o'clock hit, then I will transit to main live.
Hi.
In your life.
Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. Depends on where you come from, of course. A warm welcome from sunny Malaysia. As I look out through the window, I can see the sun shining in, which is a very good change from some of the bleary, rainy weather we've been getting. Welcome to our second iteration of Tech Talks Asia. In this session,
No, 1 second. No audio. Wait. Okay, can you test now?
okay. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you're coming in from. Thank you so much and a warm welcome from sunny Malaysia. It's been a good change from the bleary, rainy weather that we've been getting. As I look out through the window, I see the sun shining in, so it's a very good start for the day. And today, we're going to be covering, obviously, a whole host of exciting content, especially around Azure Stack HCI 22H2. And we're going to focus a lot more on reliability and scalability, right? Obviously, starting from the single node, and we're going to touch on the two-fault domains with the powerful 2 nodes and beyond, right? Going from a single to a 2-node and so forth. Of course, we also wanted to show you how exciting it is and how simple it is to be able to scale. All right. So today's session for the 16th of December, all right, we'll take you through a number of key areas. And of course, we wanted to quickly summarize that we covered the announcement of Ignite 2022 last week. Of course, we also wanted to cover some of the basics, if you want, leading into this week's session. So we wanted to touch on those areas. And of course, we covered those portions last week. And this week, we're going to zoom in a little bit more. All right. So we're going to zoom in on the portion of Jeff Woozy's session where he talked about security, especially. And of course, he also talked about the Azure edition of Windows Server Data Center. That is exciting. And of course, some of you may have been following. There's been a very exciting recent announcement on a feature called GPU partitioning. I'll jump into that in more detail shortly. And also, very importantly, all right, we will go through Azure Stack HCI 22H2 in more detail. But also, we had an exciting release of Windows Admin Center. called 2211. And with that, from our OEM partners like Dell EMC, HP, and Lenovo, we actually have exciting updates that plugs into Windows Admin Center, right? We call those extensions. Of course, with that, we will quickly jump into some advanced multi-layered security first, and then we will jump into all those scalabilities, reliability features that are important to our customers. As per last week, if you want, we believe this series of sessions are designed to inspire you and hopefully ignite that passion in you to help you take off with a simple 3, 2, 1. All right. That said, I wanted to start that with a little bit of sharing by our CEO, Satya Nadella.
For me, the end of the year is a time for reflection and recognition. And looking back, 2022 was a year of incredible innovation for our company and our industry. But for us, it can never be just about technology for technology's sake. It has to be about what people are able to do with that technology. And over the past year, that has meant being able to do more and often much, much more with less. In the midst of so many historic constraints, people and organizations have turned to digital technology to amplify what they can do and what an organization, a community, and ultimately the world can achieve. In Portugal, Edgar Simoes connected refugees to resources like food and first aid in just days with almost no programming experience. In the US, Jilka Kumar matched neurodiverse applicants to jobs, increasing their access to employment and improving retention rates using AI to identify strengths that are too often overlooked. In Ireland, Evan O'Brien and Iseult Ward redistributed literally tons of surplus food to local communities in need, addressing food insecurity. In Ghana, Mrunal Shetty and his colleagues at UNICEF delivered more than 1 billion doses of life-saving vaccines to lower-income countries, marking a turning point in our fight against the pandemic. And around the world, people came together virtually to meet the recipients of the Nobel Peace Prize and share their own visions of peace. There are so many other examples. Gary Beer, a firefighter at the East Midlands Airport who created tools that'll save valuable seconds and likely lives in the case of an incident. Agrist, a startup in Japan which applied AI to address shortages in farm labor. Fusion Teams at American Airlines which improved turnaround times at gates. Coca-Cola HBC which reduced energy usage in their plants. Toyota, H&R Block, Peace Parks Foundation. All these stories exemplify what it means to do more with less. And the ingenuity and the passion of each of these people and teams inspires me. Thank you for taking your creativity and harnessing it with technology to go after some of the world's hardest challenges in 2022, and I'm looking forward to what we'll be able to achieve together in the year ahead.
Thank you, Satya. Thank you for inspiring us this morning. I believe as we head towards the end of 2022, we have an exciting time whereby we want to connect with people. All right, and thus this Tech Talk is about connecting community with you, with people. My name's Noel, and together with me, I brought a whole slew of people. All right, and as amplified in this slide, the team is expanding, but of course, in this session, we have Cole, we have Vic, and we have Lorraine that's come together to make this possible. Do join us on the Microsoft Hybrid User Group that is featured on LinkedIn. The QR code is on the right. So join us in here so that you'll be informed, you'll be blessed. And of course, we also have a WhatsApp group called Security 101. And we use this group, right, to help reach out to inform security-minded people or those who are interested in security. You don't have to be an expert. In fact, I encourage those of you who know next to nothing about security to join us, because a lot of the sharing by Chris, myself, and a few others tend to be very, very basic, but we also want to share with you how we can protect, defend ourselves from all these cyber attacks. So click on the QR code so that you can be blessed. And these are some of the recent sharing that we have been doing. right? Like I'm sure free antivirus software should excite some customers of yours. But more importantly, to start that off for today, I wanted to talk a little bit about what Jeff Woozy shared. Right, so he started his session by talking about the advanced multi-layered security. And with that, as you can see, protect, defend, and prevent is an important set of pillars to help us protect our servers. Using Secure Core Server, we are able to secure the hardware, firmware, and even the operating system capabilities to protect against threats. So let's hear from Jeff.
Greetings, everyone. I'm Jeff Woolsey, a PM in the Azure Edge and Platform team, and it's a pleasure to come to you from the Windows Server Summit, where I'm going to discuss Windows Server 2022 and the latest updates. Now, Windows Server 2022 was driven by your requirements to run business-critical workloads in Azure, on-premises, and multi-cloud. I've got a lot of content, so let's get started with advanced multi-layer security. With multi-layer security, we're going to elevate the security posture, starting with the OS. That means securing hardware, firmware, and OS capabilities to help protect against threats. And that starts with Secured Core Server. A Secured Core Server is a modern device that comes with the highest level of hardware, software, and identity protection ready right out of the box. It protects boot of trust using industry-standard hardware root of trust, coupled with security capabilities built into today's modern CPUs. It defends against firmware-level attack by using a dynamic root of trust of measurement, DRTM, to boot up securely and minimize firmware vulnerabilities. And then Windows Defender System Guard protects, maintains, and validates system integrity. With Secured Core Server, it prevents access to unverified code. Once the CPU is brought up safely, the OS takes control. Hypervisor-enforced code integrity ensures that all code in the kernel is trustworthy, and virtualization-based security, like Credential Guard, protects domain credentials at runtime.
So I hope you enjoyed Jeff's couple of minutes talking about Secure Core Server, but he also talked about the Azure edition of Windows Server 2022 Data Center. Now, in here, there are a whole host of new capabilities, but truly, the most exciting one that I believe out of this got to be the hot patch. Why hot patch is exciting?
Hot patching is a new way to install updates that doesn't require a reboot and won't interrupt workloads running on your server. Before we start, let me describe the demo environment. On the right side, I have a new Windows Server 2022 Azure Edition Core VM created with Azure Auto Manage, where I'm going to manually install hot patch updates. Now, for comparison, on the left side, I have a traditional Windows Server 2022 Core VM, and I will install a comparable latest cumulative update, or an LCU. This is a traditional update. Now, on each VM, I've queued up 2 massive file copies as sample workloads. Now, on top, there's a timer so we can track the status of the patching installation. I'm going to start off the patch installation on each VM. First, the traditional LCU. I'm going to give it a little bit of a head start. You can see it's going ahead and it's starting on the left-hand side. Next, we're going to switch on over to the right-hand side and do the hot patch update. Now, the hot patch, oh, I hope you didn't blink. You may have missed it. It's done. I feel kind of bad about that. As you can see, the file copy continued uninterrupted. And you can see the traditional cumulative update, the LCU on the left-hand side, is still going. You know, in case you missed the first hot patch, let's run a second hot patch. So we're going to go ahead and install a second one. Look closely, don't blink. And you can see, here we go, the second hot patch. And that one's done, just like that. And you can see that was done again without impacting the running workload. Now, one of the great advantages of hot patches is that the changes are made in memory. This means that even running processes will pick up the new updates immediately and without interruption. Now, we installed these updates manually for the demo so you could see just how impactful this technology is. In reality, I would use the update orchestration and management tools developed for hot patching in Azure Auto Manage. Now, the left-hand side is still chugging along, so let's go ahead and speed up the video so we can get to the completion of the traditional update. You can see at 7 minutes and 12 seconds, we're fine, but it requires a reboot to complete the update process. If I reboot right now, it's going to interrupt my file copy. So I'm going to wait for the file copy to finish on up. So let's go ahead and speed to the end of that. And now we can perform the reboot. So that's a quick demo of what Azure Auto Manage and Windows Server 2022 Azure Edition can provide with hot patching and, of course, with Azure Stack HCI on premises.
Thank you, Jeff. So as you can see, I've highlighted 3 key points with this Azure Edition. One is when you are patching, right, using the hot patches, you get incredible speed. I really like that, all right? The need for speed is in our blood, all right? And of course, the in-memory ability for the patch to take effect. In fact, that is probably the key point that allows a no reboot scenario. Now, these are all possible with Azure Stack HCI OS. Now, the other announcement that was made recently was the high availability for GPU workloads. Now, with 22H2, with that capability, all right, we got GPU pool, right? Basically meaning that if a virtual machine that's been assigned with a GPU goes down, all right, that particular VM will then start up again in another host, all right, and still be able to access a GPU. So the workload can continue working, all right? However, the recent announcement is this hot from the oven, if you want, is GPU partitioning. GPU partitioning basically allows us to share the GPU by multiple virtual machines. So now the question some of you may have in your mind is what GPUs are supported today with GPU partitioning? The NVIDIA A2, A10, A16, and A40 GPUs. And of course, that also supports NVIDIA RTX virtual workstation, right? So these are the NVIDIA, GPUs and components that can take advantage of that. So what I did was I quickly updated that topology, if you want, the diagram, so that you can see that we can have multiple VMs consuming or sharing a single GPU simply by assigning the VM with a GPU partition and the amount of video memory that you want that particular VM to have, right? So if you go to those links, on one of the links, the product team will actually show you exactly how it's done. But what I thought it would be really nice is to actually to pull forward that video into this particular presentation. So here you go.
Hello, my name is Alvin Morales, and I'm a program manager in the Azure Stack HCI team. We are pleased to announce GPU partitioning on Azure Stack HCI 22H2. In this short video, I'll show some of the actions you can perform using Windows Admin Center to configure your GPU and assign partition to virtual machines. With that, let's explore GPU partitioning. Here, we have a new GPU updated extension, and you can see that you have a new tab called GPU partitions. Here you can view all your nodes and the corresponding GPUs that they have internally. You can also see what the partition count is set to and the assignment of these partitions to virtual machines. If the virtual machine is started, it will have an ID and it will show as acquired. If the machine is powered off, it will show under the host, but with no partition assigned. In this case, we see that we have this host and this adapter, GPU adapter, that has a different number. So let's reconfigure this adapter by selecting the host, the GPU, the proper number of partitions, and we click configure. Windows Admin Center will run this command on the host, and after a refresh, you can see that the partition count matches all the other nodes, and the statistics will all be updated. If we want to assign a partition, we just click on Assign Partition. We select the node or the host that we want, which virtual machine we want to assign a partition to, and the available VRAM that's on this GPU. And then we assign the partition. Behind the scenes, the machine will be powered down. It will be assigned a partition and then powered back up. Once that process is complete, Windows Admin Center will refresh the table and will show the virtual machine with an assigned partition under the corresponding GPU, as you can see here. You also can see that in this console, we have 4 virtual machines that are using all or consuming the whole GPU. So next, let's explore how a partition will look in the guest. For that, let's just start with a single virtual machine with no partition assigned. And under display adapters, you'll see that it just has the Hyper-V video display adapter. Now, contrasting that with one that has a partition assigned, you will see the same Hyper-V, but in addition, you will see the new partition that has been assigned. So let's run a test to see the performance. So if we look at the basic Hyper-V, let's focus on frame per second on this test. And you can see that it's around 4 frames per second. If we contrast that with one virtual machine that has a partition, you can see that now frames per second on this machine is 30 frames per second. Recall that we had 4 other virtual machines, so let's run the same test on all the other VMs so you can see that the frames per second is maintained as we share the same GPU. We have just partitions assigned.
Awesome.
So now 3 virtual machines have the same number of frames per second. And lastly, we have 1 high graphics video running on the 4th virtual machine, and all others are still maintaining the same frames per second. So with this, I hope you enjoyed this video, enjoy all the investments that we're making on Azure Stack HCI. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed that particular demo. I truly did. All right. When I saw it, I was thrilled, to say the least. But what's happening, if you want, for a lot of our customers is they are transiting, they are transforming. They're going from traditional data centers, and some of them are going into Azure data centers, right? And that said, many of them have discovered that they couldn't upload or they couldn't extend all their requirements into the public cloud. So many of them are bursting their workloads into public cloud. And some of those workloads were found to be very good in the public cloud, like Azure, and therefore they persisted those workloads on. But some of those workloads over time had to be brought back down because they discovered that they needed certain capabilities like better connectivity or performance and so forth. And only through bringing it back down to Azure HCI, they were able to meet that. And some of that included some of these Azure PaaS services that we are going to cover in more detail next week, for example. So therefore, for transformation to happen to our customers, we need to be flexible. So the hybrid solution that we bring to the market called Azure HCI gives us that amazing flexibility to burst, to persist, to transform the customer environment. Now, for those of you who are not yet ready or you're new to the Azure HCI environment, you are probably familiar with the 3-tier architecture, right? The 3-tier architecture having the hypervisor, the storage fabric, and even the SAN technology. So Azure HCI essentially is a hyper-converged solution that depends on storage within each server. Amazing industry standard x86 servers are what we use. And with software-defined storage and networking, we are able to provide that capability, right, in as few as 1 node. Amazing. And that's where customers of ours are finding it amazingly able with the flexibility to put it out to the edge. And of course, we scale all the way to 16 nodes. So each one of these nodes, if you want, form a cluster in Azure HCI OS. And what can we do? We can create virtual machines, as you can see in the middle, right? We can also run Azure Kubernetes to deploy, manage containers, right? We can even deploy cognitive services and data services using technology like Azure Arc, right, from the Azure portal. And of course, if you're using Windows Admin Center from the on-prem environment, which is what most, if not all customers are doing, You can even consume Azure hybrid services, like, for example, Microsoft Defender for Cloud or Azure Monitor, File Sync, and so on. So these capabilities, if you want, truly transforms Azure Tech HCI, not just from a technology perspective, but to help customers move forward, transforming the environment with just simple tools that you've seen all the different demos so far, right? From the on-prem all the way into cloud. And that said, the latest version of Azure HCI is 22H2. So there are multiple sets of capabilities from Network ATC version 2, the much improved version that allows customers to have network symmetry, storage, automation in terms of IP addressing, scope detection, even live migration optimization is all built in. Now, the other one that customers ask for a lot is compression for storage replica. Storage replica is designed to replicate volumes from one site to another site, one server to another server. So with that, you're able to do massive high speed, if you want, replication. And of course, when we live migrate VMs from one host to another, there's also significant improvement there. Not to mention also when we're doing patching. As you saw earlier, the hot patch capability, right? So what happens if you don't have hot patch capability, right? Cluster-aware updating is one of those tools that has been there right from the beginning to help automate the whole process of updating. And not to mention even thin provisioning conversion. That means by default, when you create your volume, it is thickly or fixed provision. We can convert that to thin provision, giving you to do more with less, is what Satya was talking about. And of course, those who started with a single server, maybe just to try it out or kick the tires if you want, you can scale that from 1 node to 2 node to 3 node and beyond. Last but not least, of course, from a networking perspective, we also have tag-based segmentation, giving us a much better way to work with the network security groups and so forth, where most of this technology, if not all, has transcended from Azure into our on-prem environment, giving us this amazing hybrid. So that said, some customers ask, what's the difference between the earlier Windows Server Data Center HCI versus the current HCI? There's so much to offer. So I'm just splashing up those differences so that you can see, all right? And of course, there are more. And this list continues to grow for obvious reason, because Azure HCI is a subscription-based solution. It's Azure-inspired, meaning that it follows a rhythm that comes out every year. Versus Windows Server Data Center HCI is what we call a long-term servicing channel technology, meaning that you get a new version every 2 to 3 years, and that means you have to wait a couple of years before you see new features and capabilities come out in this amazing way, right? However, with Azure HCI, you see this actually it's more than just once a year. We've seen some significant releases even in May, like going from minimum 2 node to a single node, but for all intent and purpose, if you want, the rhythm, right, following Azure is a lot tighter with Azure HCI OS compared to the Data Center Edition HCI. So that takes us to our first demo. Cole, would you like to take us through what are the new exciting capabilities in Azure HCI 22H2?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great. Let me share my screen. All right. Good morning, everyone. All right. Let me take you through on how the new capability that is available, that actually been made available for the administrator and for the user to actually use it, right? So let's take a look on how we actually use the Windows Admin Center to actually manage the Azure HCI, for example, right? Like the 22H2. Right. From here, I actually demonstrating how I use the Windows Admin Center to actually manage the single node configuration on Azure HCI 22H2. And I would like to show one of the very latest capability that one of it has been shown by Noel, which is converting the volume from fixed provisioning to thin provisioning using the PowerShell, right? Because previously, if you want to change the provisioning setting for a particular volume, you have to actually remove the volume and recreate the volume, right? And with the 32H2 updates, right, it has a capability for administrator to actually use a PowerShell command to actually convert the volume, right, from team provisioning to fixed provisioning, right? Right, so this is something that we will actually go through by using the PowerShell, right? And first of all, I will actually check on the existing volume. Right? For example, now I have a volume which is currently running on fixed provisioning, right? And I'm going to issue a command, right? As simple as a PowerShell command to actually convert the fixed provisioning volume to team provisioning. And after that, the administrator just need to perform a reattach of the volume, and it's ready to go, right? The volume has been converted from fixed to team, right? It's very simple and convenient, right? So administrator no longer need to actually remove the entire volume, right? They can actually using a PowerShell command and actually convert the volume directly, right? So once the process of the PowerShell has been completed, and we do a check again, yes, as you can see here, it's been converted to team provisioning. And let's go back to the Windows Admin Center, the volume management screen, and see what do you get, right, after we have performed the PowerShell command conversion, right? So let's go back to the cluster. And we take a look on the volume that we have converted just now, right? Then we go to the volume tab, and we take a look on the volume 1 that we have created just now. And as you remember just now, the footprint for the 20 gig of the two-way mirror drive is actually 40 gig of footprint. Now, as you can see here, it has been changed and updated to team provisioning, and the footprint is reduced to 30 gig. Right? So this is a very great functionality and features that provided by 32H2 that allowing the administrator to actually convert the provisioning of the volume from fixed to team via the PowerShell command. All right, thank you. Over to you now.
Thank you, Cole. Thank you. Thank you. Let me just reshare my screen.
Yeah, thank you.
So that was our first demo. I hope you enjoyed that. I believe that's truly something that encompasses doing more with less. All right. And of course, moving beyond that, we also wanted to touch on the latest Windows Admin Center 22.11. As you know, that Windows Admin Center was created almost purposefully for Windows Server and Azure HCI OS. And therefore, coupled with Azure Arc in the Azure portal, we are able to bring possibly the best experience that customers can get with some amazingly easy and simple to use tools. And of course, like it says, it's free, all right? It's browser based, and that's what a lot of customers have been asking for a long time. And those of you who are familiar with Edge and Chrome, and most people do, all right, it's great with that. And you can use it everything from the initial setup down to configuration and even ongoing operations of it, even into Azure as shared, meaning you can consume services in Azure through the Azure hybrid capability. With that said, we now have the ability to complement your existing toolkit if that's what you're using today. It could be System Center, it could be the remote server administration tools, or even the remote desktop inbox tools that many of you are familiar with. So that said, these are the capabilities that's just been released a couple of days ago. All right, and I wanted to give Cole also another opportunity to share with us how Windows Admin Center 22.11, all right, can excite and bring value to your environment. Don't forget, regardless of what brand of server, whether it's Dell, HP, or Lenovo, there are respective extensions that you can use. So I've listed some of those here with their latest, greatest extensions so they can take advantage of those respective servers, Azure HCI solutions, down to even the hardware component of those devices and those systems. So over to you, Cole. Give us a sneak peek. I'm sure the audience is excited.
Yes, definitely. Let's go through and let me show you one of the very excited capability that provided by the latest Windows Admin Center 22.11, which is just a couple of days ago, right? So let me walk you through a demo, right? So this is how the screen look like for the latest Windows Admin Center 22.11, right? And some of the menu has been reorganized, and I didn't this is the screen where I installed the latest version of the Windows Admin Center, and I haven't registered my cluster just to show you how it look like freshly after your installation, and how is the menu arrangement and the visual design refreshed in terms of the latest version as compared to the previous version, right? And is also something very interesting that we actually have a search feature in the setting menu, right? You can search the option that you are looking for, right? And it has a better design. Not limited to that, it has a property page that is being announced, right? You can actually have an overview, for example, the cluster functionality level, right? The cluster ID, right? The version number, the build number, and so on. And it allows you to make a copy of that number as well as a particular information as well, right? In addition to that, the information that I shared just now, it has come with a search feature, right? You can actually search for a certain functionality that you want instead of going through the entire menu, right? For example, I want to look for Hyper-V setting, right? I will type, not even completed the Hyper-V words, the menu already come out the Hyper-V general page for me to actually change some of the Hyper-V setting that I'm looking for, right? So this is one of the greatest improvement in this area, right? All right, that's all what I wanted to show, and over to you now.
Thank you, Ko. Thank you for giving us a quick sneak peek. I think it's important for us to continue to play with it. All right. We try to use Tech Talk as a way to get you interested, getting you excited, right? But really, I believe the excitement really comes from when you start playing with it more and more, right? And through this, all right, you will be able to maximize it. All right. So moving forward with this session, I wanted to excite you with the whole slew of the multi-layered security that we get with Windows Server 2022 and Azure HCI OS. Starting with the secure core server that Jeff Woolsey talked about, we also have some exciting under the hood capabilities at the protocol level, at the plumbing level, like DNS over HTTPS, securing your DNS query traffic, all right? And of course, HTTPS with TLS 1.3. And at the BitLocker level with volume encryption, we are able to now take advantage of AES 256. And very importantly, also from a communication perspective, when data is traveling from system to system, like Windows 11 to Windows Server 2022, or even among Windows Server 2022 systems, we can have SMB encryption. Connectivity between them is encrypted. And the best part about it, we can also turn on compression, meaning that the data is not just encrypted, but it's compressed so that the surface of attack is reduced significantly. And if the servers are Azure HCI capable and they are set up in a cluster in that manner, when you use RDMA now also has encryption using the SMB direct and RDMA encryption capabilities. Last but not least on this slide, we also have the ability to leverage something called Defender Smart Screen. So Defender Smart Screen is technology built in that is constantly knowledgeable about what are the safe websites and those that are potentially malicious. Therefore, when it's worked together with Edge browser, it is able to then discern and to block any of these malware from coming down beyond the browser into the operating system. And of course, that provides a strong complementary set of capabilities with the Microsoft Defender, right, that is built inside a Windows client or now even with Windows Server like 2022. So it's important for us to understand that security today is not just limited to the firmware protection, right, whether it's from the boot onwards or even malware attacking the firmware like rootkits, bootkits, and so forth. But it's also important to know that with this protection from the browser is something that many administrators we discovered commonly use their Windows Server to go out to download patches, to download drivers, and so forth. So that said, Defender is an important part of the entire strategy. So if you look at this particular demo, right, we actually show you in a Windows Server 2022 system how we can use Edge browser together with the smart screen to protect the system from malware coming through a browser. So this is the Edge browser, right? At that time when we were recording, this was the latest. Obviously, since it's been updated, right, at least once, if not more, right? So you see a new version or updated versions of it, right? So this is the setting where we can see that the Edge browser is integrating with the Defender Smart Screen, right? So this is an important part of the technology that customers can depend on their Windows server. And I'm not talking about from a Windows 11 perspective. So from a Windows 11 perspective, yes, it's a given, it's there. But more importantly, from a server perspective, we also have equivalent capabilities. If anything, we need even stronger capabilities because it's a server. A server that serves many, many users versus a system, a Windows 11 system that's typically serving one or few, okay? So the important part is when you go into these systems, you are protected. So let's move forward and let's do a quick comparison, if you want, between the system, like say Edge and Smart Screen versus Chrome on its own. So in this particular demo, we actually have put them side by side. Okay. On the left, we have Edge with Defender Smart Screen working. On the right, we have Chrome. Because Chrome does not integrate with Smart Screen, it doesn't get the insights, it doesn't get the intelligence on whether the website has malware. And why this is very important is because there are many situations where we discovered some of the problems that customers have could be directly attributed to using the browser on the server, right? So that's why it's important that if you look at the right side, the browser actually allowed the virus, the ICA virus, to come down to the operating system. And of course, once it hits the operating system, all right, the Windows Defender on Windows Server will pick it up. Okay, so it will mitigate that threat and isolate that threat. But on the left side, in all of those tests that we have done, it was able to block it. All right, except for the double zip. We discovered that double zip was able to come through. But I believe that's also something that Microsoft is constantly improving. But I just found this recently from this month's update. All right. Obviously, some of you know that the last couple of days, we actually have a patch Tuesday, the second Tuesday of the month. So we release an update that allows the system to be protected even further, whereby the smart screen security feature bypass is blocked off. So it's so important for you to go out there and quickly update the system for both the service and the client so that smart screens continue to be a powerful way working side by side with Edge to protect the system. Because the other aspect is the SMB encryption. SMB encryption essentially is to ensure that data that is traveling from one system to another is encrypted. As you can see on the left, it's not encrypted. That's why you can see the text, "Hello world" from IT department, versus the one on the right, you can't see that, okay? So this particular bit is an important aspect of how technology had to move forward to protect the system. Okay, so this particular demo that's been so kindly created by Co, right, and inserted into the slide deck allows us to appreciate how something as simple as SMB encryption through a simple checkbox allows us to protect even data in transit, as they call it. So you notice there's two different file shares. One called SMB encrypt, that is encrypting the data when it's traveling from that file share to remote systems, and the other one without. So in order to encrypt, amazingly straightforward, just check that box, enable SMB encryption, and off it goes. And then, of course, the compressed data as well. So as you can see, doing this is extremely straightforward. It's no magic, all right? The magic really is in your fingers about encrypting that particular or selecting encrypt for that particular file share, and off you go. And the other aspect, of course, is the amount of traffic that's using, the amount of CPU. That's one of the concerns that most administrators have. The amount of CPU used is extremely thin and light. And that's something that we need to be assured, especially in organizations where file shares is one of the main way of sharing information among each other. Okay, so as you can see, the data that's traveling, okay. So when you get a chance, go through this in more detail, all right, so that you are comforted and you know the technology is there for you and is able to protect your data and so forth, right? So these are elements of the architectural changes in Windows Server 2022 and Azure HCI OS that you can depend on. So summarizing, SMB encryption really works to protect your data and is using AES 256 as well, okay? Now, the other aspect of using AES 256 is surely the BitLocker portion. BitLocker is a volume encryption, as mentioned. All right, most of you probably know what BitLocker does. All right, and the good news is BitLocker today allows you to just encrypt the portion that is used versus the entire volume. So in this demo, we're going to set it to encrypt the entire volume. But when you get my content, right, you get to check it out. But I'm going to fast forward for the interest of time so that we get through the whole bunch of exciting stuff that we have planned for you. So this is BitLocker with AES 256 encryption. Now, the other technology that is very important that's fundamentally helps protect your organization is this thing called DNS over HTTPS. So with DNS over HTTPS, we now encrypt the referrals, the DNS client connectivity with the DNS servers and so forth. And this is something that has been requested and finally has landed, if you want. And of course, another time. Okay, so I'll let you watch this when time comes to pass. Okay, but more importantly, right, it's important for us to know that this feature is here to stay and is an exciting part of the technology. Now, the bit that is probably the most important in this session is how we build the fastest HCI solution in the market. So one of the important thing is around caching. As you can see, we can have all flash, all NVMe, we can have all SSD, we can have even a combination of NVMe and SSD. Important thing to note is the caching is write only, okay? And of course, the other important part also is the resiliency that you get with it. Resiliency here basically means what happens when there are faults, okay? When a node goes down, for example, how does that affect the data that's stored in the volume? What happens if the node goes down and in the remaining node, there's a drive failure? How would that be tolerated? So there are many ways to do that. And we do that through a technology called nested resiliency. There are two flavors to that, nested two-way mirror and nested mirror accelerated parity. And now obviously it varies from the efficiency in terms of storage because the technology vary in terms of how much resiliency data is stored. The more it stores, the less available use space. But at the end of the day, majority of our customers tell us that we need it to be of the highest resiliency so that we can tolerate as much failure as possible. So nested two-way mirror and nested mirror accelerated parity. That is available in our two-node configuration. How exciting is that? I'm going to quickly also show you what that looks like. So when you create your storage pool on a two-node system, right, you can set up your volume to be nested mirror accelerated parity. Now with nested mirror accelerated parity, you have a combination of mirror and dual parity. So three-way mirror, dual parity, okay? And of course, you also can do nested two-way mirror, right? Like mentioned, this nested two-way mirror obviously has slightly less available use space, but combining them together give us a very powerful way to protect customers' data, even with a two-node configuration. So that takes us to our next demo, all right? Over to you, Cole. Let's have a look and see what two-fault domains look like with a node failure and also a drive failure.
Thanks. So thanks, Noah, on sharing the very great topic area on the reliability that provided by the HSA HCI cluster in terms of the resiliency and how good is the two-way mirror can provide the tolerant capability for the customer who use it, right? So let's go through a demo, right? In this demo, I'm going to simulate a NOT fail, a NOT failure, and at the same time, we have a drive fail in the remaining NOT. And we're going to demonstrate how when this situation has been occur and happens, how the volume, how the data that's stored in the volume can actually survive from this situation, right? So as you can see here, I have a virtual machine that is running on the volume, right? And I will just quickly want to show you that it's currently running on the nested volume, right? That I configured, right? And after this, I will actually simulate a scenario where there's one NOT fail in a two NOT configuration scenario, right? As you can see here, it's actually running on the volume tree, right? And I will show you later, right? Volume tree is actually running on a nested volume, right? Right. So as you can see here, it's actually running on a nested two-way mirror volume, right? Right. So the model will create a capability for us to have a resiliency during the NOT failure, right? So let's simulate, right? So now I have a drive fail. Sorry, I have a NOT failure, right? One of my NOT actually goes down due to some incident, right? So let's take a look on what will happen for our volume during one of the NOTs is failed, right? So as you can see here, NOT 1 failed. Oh my God, the administrator will say, oh, our NOT, once our NOT is down, so what will happen to our volume, right? So let's take a look, right? So the screen will actually come up with a summary by alerting the administrator that so your volume, your nodes is down, and there will be an impact on your volume. So let's take a look. Our volume was still up and running. We're showing a status that need to be repaired, right? And from here, from the drive perspective, right, you can see that those drives that under node 1, for example, is lost the communication because the node 1 is down. But so you were curious, what if there's a drive fails in my remaining node, right? So what will happen to our data and what will happen to our workloads, especially the virtual machine that is running, right? So this is what I'm going to simulate, right? So let's take a look, right? Let's take a look on what's wrong with what will happen to our virtual machine, right? With the one node down at the moment, right? So as you can see here, my virtual machine is currently still up and running. And in this event, I'm also even simulating not only the Microsoft virtual machine, I actually tried the simulating the machine that running on other operating system, for example, the Linux, right? So as you can see, my virtual machine was still running even with one NOT fail, right? So let's take it further, right? I'm going to simulate a drive fail in the remaining NOT, right? So from here, I will go to my nested environment and I will actually remove one of the drive to actually simulating there's a drive fail in the remaining node, right?
Wow.
So how powerful is that this capability can actually protect customer data workloads during the drive fail or even a NOT fail in as simple as a two NOT configuration, right? How powerful is it?
Hi, Carl and Noel.
Yeah.
We have another 10 minutes to the clock.
Yeah, no
Thank
problem.
you.
Thanks. All right, so after the status is updated into the Windows Admin Center, right? You see that there is a drive have been updated as a fail, right? Right. So one drive is lost its communication, right? So, administrator will be informed that we have a critical situation where one of our node is down and we have a drive fail in the remaining node. So what will happen to the workload, right? So pretty good that the workload are still running, even in this scenario, where we have a 2-fault domain, right? One node fail with one drive fail in the remaining node, right? As you can see here, our workloads are still running, and let's take a look on the volume, right? Before that, I will actually try to access the virtual machine and making sure that it's still up and running, right? And you can see those volume without nested resiliency is actually offline currently, right? And those volume with nested resiliency are still running and showing a status that need to be repaired, right? So this is a capability from the nested resiliency that provided from the 2-node configuration, right? So due to interest of time, then I think you will have a further review on it after you get the recording, right? So over to you now.
Thank you, Ko. Thank you. So as you can see,
Thanks.
having 2 fault domain can be very critical, especially in a 2-node configuration. Now, some of you are probably wondering, are we just being extremists, if you want? When you have a node go down, the pressure and the stress on the remaining node increases proportionally. So the possibility of a drive failure on that actually increases significantly. So that's why the product team actually went to that trouble to create that 2 fault domain scenario, right, supported. So how do you select that? When you select a volume creation with the 2-node, you get those 2 options, right? And that's how we go about managing that scenario, okay? When you go to a 3-node, obviously there are 3-way mirror option available now. And that's what it looks like from Windows Admin Center. And if you go further into a 4-node, right now, it opens up, it unlocks additional resiliency capability called mirror accelerated parity, right? So truly, this capability is something that differentiates us significantly from the others. And of course, sometimes customers ask, so what happens when the drive that has gone down is removed and a drive is replaced? So that's where the reserve capacity capability comes into the picture, all right, giving us the ability to support that. So if I were to start with a single node, all right, you can see that for the longest time with Azure ACI, even in the early days when it was just called S2D, we actually had the ability to go to start with 2 nodes, which is the most popular, and then of course the 3 nodes and the 4 nodes. So this configuration, the fact that they support switchless, give us an amazing differentiation compared to other PCI solutions, and we can still go all the way to 16 nodes. So that said, to summarize our capabilities, we can have 1 node, 2 node, 3 nodes, or X number of nodes for a homogeneous set of capabilities, virtualizing Windows, Windows Server, and even Linux. But how about if we want to bring on other services like Azure services? We want to bring down Azure services from Azure, like PaaS services with AKS, with Azure Virtual Desktop, we can do that as well, including even cognitive services and data services. And don't forget, Windows Admin Center is extremely versatile. It is able to connect into Azure, allowing you to consume those capabilities. So it could look something like this. When you bring together the message from last week and this week with the software assurance, you can tie that to your Dell EMC, HPE, and Lenovo service using the OEM Windows Server 2022 data center plus software assurance. You will be able to provide an amazing, powerful server solution, PCI solution, and yet consume all those cloud services that we talked about from Azure and lots more beyond the list, okay? So that pretty much takes us to the end, if you want. And obviously, we've covered the whole slew of capabilities. We talked about the secure core server. We also talked about the Windows Server Data Center Azure Edition. And the GPU partitioning made my day, truly. All right, I've been waiting for that for the longest time. All right, and with the GPU partitioning now, virtual machines can share the valuable GPUs, right, and be able to provide amazing, all right, frames per second that was simultaneously accessed by multiple virtual machines. And of course, the latest Azure ACI 22H2 giving us a whole slew of those capabilities, including the one that Ko shared in his demo. And not limited to that, obviously, we also looked at Windows Admin Center in its latest iteration, 22.11. Right, there's so much to show, right? For the interest of time, obviously, we can't show all of it, but hopefully the advanced multi-layer security capability continue to give you confidence that the solution is strong to protect you from cyber attacks and so on. Now, the bit that we just showed you from the resiliency perspective, from a single node, right? Ability to scale. Obviously, we have a lot more demos. We can take you from the single node to a 2-node, to a 3-node, to a 4-node, all right? And we can do that in a switchless manner, or through a switch configuration. We take you beyond the 4 nodes all the way to 16. And for those of you who have also heard this term called cluster set, we can cluster clusters. We federate multiple sets of clusters, right, up into tens and hundreds of nodes, which gives you the true, if you want, hyperscaling in an on-prem perspective. So that takes us, if you want, pretty much to the end of our tech talk for this iteration. Hopefully you enjoyed the sharing that we did, all right? And obviously all of these plus more will continue to come further into the next session, and we will give you fresh updates as well. Signing off from Tech Talk Asia. And don't forget, we have next week, okay? So join us on this particular Tech Talk, all right? And we've got plenty to share with you, especially around the Azure PaaS services. So if there are questions, I hope you've been posting them into the stream, all right? And hopefully we'll get to help you understand and wrap your head around some of the more complex scenarios that we may have shown. Signing off from yours truly, together with my team, Cole, Vic, and Lorraine. We would like to see you again next week. All right, thank you. Take care and a wonderful rest of the day and the weekend ahead. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.